What fantastic weather. I mean, it's early August and we're in the middle of a heat wave. The last time I remember anything like this was 1976. That's a few years ago, isn't it? And then, do you know what happened then? There was a massive explosion of fish. You know, they bred really well that year, and it followed on that the fishing was great for sort of 7 or 8 years after, so perhaps we've got that to come. Because it's very warm, the fish grow quick. When they actually breed, they grow much quicker and they survive the winter. I'm here at Pisces Caravan Park, which is a holiday park. Several lakes which anglers who stay at the holiday park can fish. It's not a day ticket water. This actually is a syndicate water, and I happen to be a syndicate member. Lucky me. Free of charge, of course. And what I'm going to do today is explain the method feeder. The method, now the word method is when it came out about 8 years ago, it was the method. It was the best way to catch carp, with a ball of ground bait round a feeder and with a fairly short hook length close to it. It's changed a little bit since then, but I was going to go through today the different ways that you could fish a method feeder. But as always, to begin with, you need to mix your ground bait. A method feeder uses ground bait, and my particular choice today is a Van der Nine Super Method Mix. This is a 2 kilo bag. You can get easily through 2 kilo in a session, so a good big bag of ground bait. Doesn't really need any other additives with it. I do add a bit of my favourite sort of flavour into the water, so the whole of the ground bait in its dry contents goes in to the bag. And then what I do is, and this is one of my favourite carp mixes, it's liquid Super Scopex. That is added to the water. You can add that to the water, reasonable amount, probably sort of almost a quarter of that container into 2 pints of water. And then, as always with ground bait, you've got your dry contents. Add the water carefully so that you can actually assess the amount of water going in. So I use one of these Drennan bait tubs to add this water in. Just get it in there, and it will need 2 or 3 goes. It will dry out, then you need to add some more, and then finally put it through a big riddle. Although there's some nice large pieces in there, I'll show you how you can actually riddle the ground bait into smaller pieces, but still put these large, big chunks of bait. There, look, there's one. There's one of these large chunks which are attractive to carp. There, big flake, or anything like this. All these bits we'll put back in. So add the water, leave it to dry, then add it again and riddle it. So we need to do a bit more work on that, but that's always the first job when you arrive at the riverbank, or the lake bank as it is here, lakeside. Now I'm using a large mesh ground bait riddle, really big mesh. You don't want this ground bait too fine anyway, and as I said earlier, what happens is, you'll see this, when I riddle it, it goes through very easily, but there will be some big lumps, big hard lumps remaining, but these smaller, wetter lumps, just rub them through. Don't waste anything. These carp are really greedy. They will eat everything. Now look, that's what I was telling you about. Those larger pieces there, here, here, here. Once you've got the wet lumps of ground bait through, just put them back in. Do the lot. It takes no time to do a kilo. You can do that rest of it. So first of all, just pick the whole bucket up and riddle it, so you get all the sort of slightly drier pieces through. Then you can see your wet pieces. These are your wet pieces. You can just rub those through very carefully with your hand. Try not to squash them too much, but this type of diamond mesh on a ground bait riddle actually cuts through the ground bait. Actually cuts through it. So now everything is there. There's a few big pieces which the carp are going to eat. But what you get is a very fine texture which will easily mould round the method feeder. Now I've already had a couple of casts with the feeder just to get my distance. I'm using a line clip, I'm fishing to that reed bank on the other side, so I need to clip up, get nice and tight to those reeds every cast. Try and keep the feeder going in the same place. I'm using a piece of sweet corn on the hook because it usually deters. Smaller fish will take it, but if you use maggots, generally they can get attacked by smaller fish. But you always have to muck about with what you're going to use. Now the feeder itself, this one, is a coil feeder, and what I'm doing, method is where it's like a ball of ground bait. You can imagine that. Look at that. That is actually, if you threw that in, that would be like you'd throw a ball of ground bait in anywhere, wouldn't it? And it makes a noise. Fish are always attracted by noise. So when you cast out, it's a big bush, makes a big noise, and of course your hook bait is sort of 10 inches away. You can have it 5 inches. You need to vary that sometimes as you fish, but I can chat about that later on. So basically that's it, a big ball of ground bait with your hook bait close by, and that's all it is. It's a fairly simple setup. And when you go to cast, always pick a far bank marker so you're casting in the same position each time. Keep the rod vertical and bring the feeder behind you. As long as you cast and keep the rod vertical, pointing towards your marker, then your actual feeder will go in that direction. It will keep straight. The more vertical you can keep it, of course, the better it is. So back behind you, keep this nice and close, get your feeder behind you, there, and then bang. Almost into those reed beds, but because I'm clipped up, I can cast with confidence. I know that round that bed of weeds on the far bank, that's where carp are liable to patrol. And I'm casting right on the edge of it. So when you pick your spot to fish, try and pick a spot where you know that fish are going to be anyway. So I've just cast out, left, cast to the clip the rod over, and then just watch. And quite often you'll get little line bites, and I've got them now, where fish come in to the ground bait and start knocking the ball, and there it goes round straight away, and there's one on. What a great start. That was almost instant, wasn't it? Cast out, few line bites. That is the real power of the method. Cast out, just a little flicker, round the tip goes. What's this? It is a carp. When it took off first of all, I didn't think it was, but it is. Look how they fight. Just controlling it nice and steady, but I'm back winding now because it's whizzing off. Just found out it's hooked, I think. It came in so easily. Now it's whizzing back out again. This is a fantastic way of fishing. Just got my clutch set a little bit. There, just clicking just a little bit. Oh dear, that's brilliant. Just hear that clutch going, but I can still, if it really roars, I'll back wind on it. That is really a lot of power though. A lot of power in the tackle that I'm using, and I'll run through that in a minute with you. Just playing the fish and powerfully lifting it, got it on the surface. Do you know what? I thought I'd got that fish tamed. It was on the top, coming in, and it's gone again. That's incredible. Ah, that's up now. What a fight. Real fat fish. Look at that. What a cracking fish to start off with. Look at. Oh, lovely. What a beauty. Beautiful. Such lovely condition. And a bit like a football. Perfectly hooked just in the lip. Look at that. The hook's just there, just in the lip. But that was a perfect bite. Hooked itself. All I did was lift it into the fish. And that, look. Ooh, it's still fighting. They are so strong. try and get hold of that so I can show that to camera, because that is just a wonderful fish. Look at that. Beautiful, plump, absolutely perfect condition. I bet there's loads more in this cave roll. Feels like another good fish. Not a big fish though. I wouldn't expect, it looks like a bream, and you wouldn't expect to catch bream on the method feeder. Look at that. It's blown that piece of sweet corn right up the line. Look at that, £2 bream. You wouldn't, as I say, you wouldn't really expect to catch that on the method feeder, but it took the tip straight round. But you never know what you're going to catch on this. You know, it's just such a brilliant way of fishing. You just don't know. That piece of sweet corn's gone. Yeah. Lovely fish, but it's a £2 fish. Usually, everything you catch on this style of fishing will be a good quality fish. Doesn't feel like a carp, but another good fish. Bream, I should think again. Good fish though, big fish. I'm saying it doesn't feel like a carp, it might well be. Oh, it's running now. Lovely, but I've got a good powerful rod. The rod I'm using is a 12 foot, it's called a rhino. I think it is a carp. It took off so slowly, I thought it was a bream, but I think it is a carp. It's running now, I've got a back wind on it. Lovely action. So I'm using a powerful rod, it's 12 foot. But a lot of power, because when you're casting that big method feeder, you need a lot, you know, you need a good powerful rod. It's a fair weight with all that ground bait on it. I think this is a carp. I don't know my own strength. I don't think it, I just picked into it. I don't think it knew it was hooked at first. It's kiting round into those reeds now, but I'm using the power of the rod to keep it out of those reeds. Really giving it some stick. Oh no, this is definitely a carp. Great fish. Really is. You see that rod bending right round. Although I've got the clutch set, I'm actually playing the fish by back winding, doing a bit of everything. Oh, this is definitely a carp. It wasn't a typical carp bite though. Normally when carp bite, they just sort of whiz you straight round, but this was a lovely, slow, almost a breamy-like bite. Oh, definitely a good fish, this one. Definitely a good fish. And notice how I've got my arm on the rod. Actually, that's the power. And then using my finger there just to hold the fish. If I want it to run, I can just release it, let it run, stop it, pull it. I'm trying to keep it out. I've got some trees to my left and reeds to my right, so I'm trying to keep the fish and play it in open water. Just incredible how good this method feeder is. It's great for youngsters when they're starting. It's a good way of catching a big fish early on. Power in that rod is incredible. Good strong line, and I'll run through all the setup with you in a minute, but good strong line, big hook. The clutch just came into play then. Did you just hear it? Just a little, that's the second safety factor for me. Wants to get in them reeds. This is a good fish. Didn't think it was this big when I first hooked it. I think it's because here they're not used to getting caught. It's probably not fished all that much. not like your normal commercial fishery would be. And this is a cracking fish. This is a really big fish. Oh, fabulous fish. Big mirror carp by the looks of it. Just caught a glimpse of it then. Lovely. Look at that rod, the action in that rod. As I said, it's a Zebco Rhino 12 foot, good powerful rod. But you can bend these rods almost double and they won't break. That's the beauty of them. Actually bend them double. As I lift it up, you'll see the method feeder coming just very close to the fish, because I'm only using a 10-inch hook length, so the feeder's almost on the fish. There it is. What it does, the fish attacks the ball of ground bait on the method feeder, sees the hook bait fairly close to it and is fooled. Because fishing's always about fooling fish, isn't it? And this one's really scrapping. Fabulous fight they give. Really wild. As I said, they're probably never caught. And I've got strong line on here, strong hook length. You know, I'm not mucking about with it. It's just the power of this mirror carp, the real power, and it's got its head up now. Well, I thought I had its head up. Here we go. Beautiful fish. That is really given. And this is what fishing's all about, isn't it? The fight, the scrap, the actual playing of the fish. Look at that. Whew, dear. That gave me some scrap. Beautiful big mirror carp. About £6. The hook's just inside its mouth, so I'm going to use a disgorger. I usually have my disgorger around my neck, but when I'm carp fishing, I don't like that so much. I prefer to actually have it beside me. And it's so powerful and strong. I'm going to keep it in the net. This hook really, the hook is inside the mouth, which is unusual for carp. You know, it was so confident when that took it. What I'm going to do is it's hooked quite deeply, so I'm just going to cut the line. Rather than hurt the fish, I just cut the line. Always do that. The fish get rid of the hook ever so easily. Just cut the line as far down as you can. And that fish can then get rid of the hook very, very easily, rather than go in any depth. But what about that? That's a lovely fish, isn't it? Beautiful, probably £5 or £6 mirror carp. Lovely fish. On the method feeder. Now you need good strong line when you're fishing with a method feeder, and I've got it's a Browning feeder line, and it's 0.22 which is about £12 breaking stone, so a really good strong line. I'm using what they call an inline method feeder, which you actually thread it on your line through the middle there so that it slides up and down. What happens is that, I'm going to put a swivel on the end, but if you do happen to sort of get hooked up or snagged, then that feeder will always break free. The carp is not dragging it round. You imagine if you broke any line, hook length or whatever, that feeder would come off, so the fish doesn't then get snagged, and it's very important. So this is an inline, free running method feeder. I'm using a little Drennan stop, which the swivel actually goes onto. Just a little stop there. That's just to make everything a bit more easier to use. Barrel swivel. Now the main line is attached to this barrel swivel with I was going to say a 5-turn water knot. No, it's not a 5-turn water knot. It's a tucked half blood, but you give it 5 turns. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 turns through the swivel, you put the line back through that loop there. Can you see I've done that? I've put it back through that loop. And that leaves another big loop here. And that's where you tuck it. You then tuck it back through that other loop that you've left. Doesn't matter which way you go, whether you go forwards or backwards, but you just have to tuck that back. I know it's hard to see knots on cameras, isn't it? Always wet it, pull it down. Once you pull it down, really check it, get hold of it and really pull it, just to make sure, no, that's not slipping, that's not going anywhere. So that's, and then trim that off neatly. This actual stop will come down and clip over that swivel. Like that. It sort of actually fits and clips hard onto the swivel there. I'll trim that knot off. Pair of scissors. Just whiz that off, no problem. With a pair of scissors, just cut it nice and neat there. Don't have to worry about cutting it too tight. Best to leave a little bit there actually. So that's the feeder free running on there. You can see it's just stopped there by that swivel. So there, that's how simple it is. It just stops, runs down onto that Drennan stop there with the swivel. And all you've got to do then is just tie your hook length onto there as long as you want. And I'm using, that last fish I was using about a 10-inch hook length. You can vary that. Sometimes the fish come really close to the, I've already tied a hook up. Sometimes the fish come really close to that. And this knot is exactly the same as the other one. It's a 5-turn water knot. I've said it again. A 5-turn tucked half blood. Just get it back there. That's the hook length. The span of my fingers is about 9 inches. That's how I usually gauge things. 9 or 10 inches. Just, we can do that again. 1, 2, 3, 5 turns. 5 turns. Put it through like you would a normal blood knot, but then you must finish it off by that little tag that comes out there. Tuck that through there. So it's there, through, wet, tuck, and then trim that piece off there. I suppose I better do that for you, get that exactly right. Just trim it off once again. You leave a little bit of line there. Don't tuck that too tight. But there it is, and it's so neat. Nice 10-inch hook length. The feeder itself free running, so that if the fish do happen to break off and snag up, they're never tagged. Such a simple method. Perfect cast, right in those rushes. I think I almost hit a carp when I cast out. I saw a carp come surging out of the rushes. But right on the edge where those are hanging over, I've actually cast in. Might have to wait a little bit now because, because I've been explaining the rig and chatting about that. Just takes a bit of time. Method feeder is like any other way of fishing. You have to keep feeding in the same spot with feed to make sure the fish are aware that there's feed in that particular area, and to draw them in and to keep them there. It's all about fishing, remember, it's all about feeding, whether it's method feed or whatever it is, getting the fish into the area by feeding them and casting into that same spot. So important. And really watch out for these line bites. The little flickers, don't worry about striking those. And when you get a bite from a carp, just lift into it. No violent striking. Usually they're hooked. The actual weight of the method feeder as the fish take the bait, the carp are normally hooked. Another little liner then. And so let the tip go around and just pick the rod up really nice and gently. Just almost pull into the fish. That's all you need to do. But don't strike at all the little flickers. You tend to get more line bites because of the fact that you've got this big ball of ground bait right near your hook bait. So the fish are milling around that, knocking that, not always taking the bait straight away. It's not gone that time, it doesn't go every time, but the important thing is to keep throwing the feeder in. Don't leave it in there for an hour. You know, every sort of 5 or 10 minutes you need to be going in and out, because each time you go in, well, that might be why I didn't get a bite. I'd lost my bait. I hadn't realised it, and that can happen as well. I mean, and if you left it out there for an hour without any bait on, you'd be right cheesed off, wouldn't you? So you need to keep a constant check on your bait, make sure there's no tangles. This method's great. It doesn't usually tangle up because it's so simple. I've got a fair bit of sweet corn in there to wrap around this ball of ground bait, so it's always a good idea to give the fish some food that is the same as on the hook. So we've got some good particles, some sweet corn particles, and mould that round that coil feeder. Just mould it round and then back out again. So each time you cast, you're virtually, if you're casting every 5 or 6 minutes, you're putting a ball of ground bait in every 5 or 6 minutes. Keep the feed going there. There won't be carp there all the time, but what happens is, it's such a brilliant way of fishing, they can't resist it. In the end, you catch them. Just nicely in that little gap there, almost a little tiny gap there where some reeds have broken down. So I'm really tight to that far bank reed bed. And every time it's going into the same place. And all you do then is just rod down. Now, I've actually got the rod positioned probably fairly well out into the lake. The bite is going to be good. As the feed is dropped, I don't want to, oh, a lovely line bite then. I don't want to come right back parallel with the bank, because you imagine what would happen. You would pull the feeder perhaps 2 metres away from where you're casting. So I've cast, I've actually let the feeder drop and just left it there. So you need to point your rod fairly well out into the lake. You still see the bite, no problem, but you're closer to strike and you can see everything still quite easily. There's just a slight angle between, I haven't cast directly to it, just a slight angle, slight enough angle so that I can pick up the line bites and the proper bite when it comes. And then just relax. You don't have to hold the rod, you know, just as long as it's resting on your knee or your leg. Remember, you don't have to strike at every bite. You'll get little flickers which are line bites. And as soon as you get the proper bite where the tip goes right round, then just pick the rod up and you're into the fish. Just smooth, so you can, I actually rest my arms on my knees, you know, take the time. And a good indication about when to come in is when your line bites stop. Usually when you throw out with a ball of ground bait, you get little indications. If they stop completely, it means all your ground bait, all the interest that's held the fish there is gone. You need to come in again and recast. So that's just a good guide. If you're getting loads of line bites, then stay out there. If everything goes still, come in and recast. But the most important thing is, just don't be too quick at trying to hit bites. Really watch the tip. Don't hit the line bites, just wait for when the tip goes right round. This feels like a big fish. Just put 4 maggots on. Thought I'd get pestered with little fish, but no, it's really running towards me, this one. Just to try it, because it's the bottom is very, very silty, very weedy. This fish has come right under my feet already. Wait till it realises it's hooked. I just put 4 red maggots on just to try it and see what happens. This fish doesn't know it's hooked yet. Got it right in front of me already. It really doesn't know. Pulled it all the way in. And the bottom's very silty, as I said, and I think those maggots are just lying a little bit easier on the surface than the sweet corn. Oh, now it knows it's hooked. I pulled it all the way in, it just didn't realise. I just caught a glimpse of it. It's another really good mirror carp. Now the hook length I'm using is 0.20mm. That's about 10 £, break and train. It's a Browning Senna Tan, high tech, so it's a really strong hook length. Remember, I've got a 22.22mm reel line, so the reel line's a bit heavier. Fish is coming in now. Fish. So, and the hook is a 14 Drennan barbless carp feeder, really strong hook, so all the tackle is really powerful. Really, honestly, this fish came flying towards me and then realised there was a hook on the end. Just, as I said earlier, they're just not caught. Beautiful fish. This is terrific. It just shows you the quality of fish that you catch on this style of fishing, this method I was going to say, but of course it is the method. Now it's gone flying off. I had it right under my feet and it honestly did not know it was hooked. Tremendous, tremendous fight. But all the time remember that I'm actually watching for the fish to run, letting it run, playing it. Here it comes, it's on the top now. Lovely, all big fish these, beautiful fish. It's a lovely mirror carp. Just finger on the reel there. When I go to land the fish, because I've got my anti-reverse off, in other words, there, the reel line's going now, and the clutch is going. As you get to net the fish, just put your finger on the front of the bail arm, just to hold the fish. Now this one is going crazy. Now the clutch is flying. You can't believe how hard this fish is fighting. Keeping it out, steering it away from those reeds all the time. Do you know what? It's so powerful. It makes your arm ache. The fish are so powerful. There it is on the top. Once you get his head up, then you can slide underneath it. Get your finger on that bail arm so you hold it still. You can see the red maggots. Oh, this is a terrific fish. Oh, how big? Probably about 8 pound, I should think. Cracking great fish, but as I said, these are the size of fish that you can catch on the method. Hook's actually just popped out of it, the hook and the maggots. Let me see if I can get that fish up and show it to you. You have to be careful with these because they can easily flip out of your hand. Look at that. I'm going to tuck it right into me. Look at that. Beautiful mirror carp. Very powerful. Probably 6 or 7 pounds, but a lovely fish. Terrific hard fight, but just couldn't resist those 4 maggots close to that big ball of ground bait. It's so important. You see, it knocks the ground bait. The loose offerings are there coming off it. 4 maggots. And it's fooled, and that's what you have to do. You have to fool the fish. I'm going to slip it in the net. Oh dear, this is terrific fishing. I'm going to give you a good tip now on how to bury your hook bait into the feeder. That's another little trick, and I'll show you how to do that now. All you do, and this can prevent tangles as well, although my rig hardly ever tangles. All you do is you bait your hook up, piece of sweet corn or 4 maggots or whatever. Let's just say, for instance, it's a piece of sweet corn. Piece of sweet corn, like that. So you put your sweet corn on your hook. You can then actually mould your ball of ground bait round your feeder like you normally would. But once you've moulded it fairly hard, bring this hook bait round. Okay, just bring that hook bait round and then just mould an extra piece of ground bait on the top, sort of to stick that in position. Just an extra little piece and squeeze it on. So you've got your hook bait, you can see your line coming out there, your hook bait is actually buried in there. Can't tangle, but when the fish really does work sometimes when it's really difficult. I'm not doing it today because it's not too hard, but when it's difficult, the fish are actually knocking this. And then of course a bit of maize will drop out with the hook and they sit, grab it, bang, you've got them. So that's a good tip. On difficult days, you can actually bury your hook bait in the ball of ground bait as the fish knock it and it dissolves, hook bait drops out and the fish grab it. What could be better than that? Cast straight out, I better get another one. Really is a terrific way to fish. Perfect. That just about guarantees a fish there. Right tight into those weeds. I know that's where the fish are patrolling. Just nice and close. and they just can't resist it. You've got a ball of ground bait, the bait nearby, within 10 inches, you know, and as they bang the bait, the actual ball, your hook bait may lift up, it may move, they see it and grab it. The beauty of it is that you hardly miss a bite because they hook themselves. You've got that big weight, the method feeder, the ball of ground bait, round it goes and it's on. As easy as that. Just lift up and you're into the fish. And this one's taking line straight away. That clutch is working immediately. They just can't resist it today, can they? This is fabulous fishing. Nearly all carp, but this is what I've come for, big fish. And, you know, I was introduced to this method feeder about, probably I should think, it's fairly recent, probably 10 years ago this came in. And I was introduced to this method feed. I'm just keeping the fish down, it's going round by that tree there. I've just got to keep my rod down. I've got obstructions on both sides where the fish can actually get caught in, so I'm really being careful, trying to keep it out of that weed. It might look funny on camera, but it's something that I have to do just to try and make sure. And this one feels like it snagged me. Oh no, it's out again. Really putting on some pressure, trying to keep it out of that tree. Can you hear the clutch? The clutch is roaring. I'm not giving it anything. But I've got it round. I've got it away from that tree area, which is what I wanted. This method feeder, as I say, about 10 years ago, I went to Mallory Park and I was practicing for a big match. And Roy Marlowe actually introduced me to it. And when he explained it to me, I couldn't believe it. And what he did was, he said, you try one, Bob. He gave me this method feeder, showed me how to rig it up. This was at Mallory Park on the centre lake. The cars go all round the track on the outside. And I threw this method feeder in. And within 10 seconds, the tip had gone round and I'd caught a carp. And from then on, I thought, this is a brilliant way to fish. This fish is still fighting, it's keeping down. Brilliant hard fighting fish. Well, they're all hard fighting, all been mirrors though today. Is this a common? There are commons in here as well, but yes, this is a common. Beautiful common carp. Lovely condition. Beautiful fish. But they're all clonking great fish. All a real effort, you know, to even just pick the... Another one about 7 pounds. Beautiful fish. I'm going to unhook it in the net. You probably can't see everything I'm doing when I'm unhooking it. That one was actually caught just... This happens sometimes. That was caught just on the outside of the mouth. They can quite often do that as they whiz away. Can I hold this to camera without dropping it? I'm going to hold my net there. Don't like dropping, but this is a lovely big common. They really, as you go to pick them up, they do just go mad. Even got a bit of ground bait on it, that one. How about that? Just all terrific quality and big fish. Really is, truly is wonderful fishing. Put him carefully back in the net. You can actually use your landing net for this. Actually, if you're worried about it, put your landing net. If you want to put a fish in the net, put your landing net inside your keep net to drop it. And you can actually get it right down, and then you don't drop it from such a great height. It really is terrific fishing, isn't it? Perfect. Straight in by those weeds. Same place every time. That's important. But the line clip does that for you. And once you set that line clip, it's no problem. Now the tip I'm using today, because I'm fishing for carp and they're a fairly powerful fish, the tip doesn't need to be too light. This is a 2-ounce glass tip. You don't want a carbon tip, glass tip. And remember, you're chucking or you're throwing and casting a 5 ounce, probably is total of 5 or 6 ounces with all that ground bait. So it's pretty heavy. So you need a powerful rod and a reasonable sized tip. Carp are not timid biters that will go straight round, so it's not a problem. Not fishing for skimmers or anything. And the actual feeder rest has got a sliding head on it. So in an emergency, if the fish really pulled hard, that actual yellow piece there will slide across the arm there, like that. So that just gives you an extra, if you get a really violent take, it probably gives, the speed that these carp take sometimes probably gives you an extra half a second to hit the fish. So you've got that working, and then I've got the rest on a feeder arm on my box. This is coming off of my frame which I sit on, or your box legs or anything. You can get loads of different things. So everything is nicely situated. I can move it and twist it and do what I want, with the rod just perfectly resting on my leg. Arms there ready to hold it, because one thing you mustn't do with this style of fishing, you mustn't leave your rod. You must always be there ready for this violent, there it goes, round it goes. You must be ready to pick up and lift into the fish. It's so important. You can't wander off and talk to your friends when you're method fishing, particularly for carp, because they will pull your rod in without any problem. Did you see how quick that was? We were out with the ball of ground bait hit near, same place every time. It's another one of these fish kiting round. When they go round like that, I've really got to yank hard on them. It's going mad. Got this rod at full power, trying to get that fish away from them trees. And to do that, I keep the rod low and pull. Once the fish is round and out of problem, then you can lift the rod up in the normal fashion. Just lift the rod up and play the fish as normal. That one took so quickly, there's still some ground bait round the feeder. Just the last little bit just flicked off. But look at that one, I've really tamed this one quickly. But it's terrific. I mean, it's all action. All action. I've got it there. The clutch was going at first, but you can see how much stick I'm giving this fish. You know, I'm fighting it quite hard. Beautiful. I mean, what other way could you fish where you're catching big fish after big fish, one after the other? As I said earlier, it's terrific for youngsters. Anybody starting out fishing who wants to start fishing, to actually, all they need is a rod, throw it out with this method feeder. Caught that one again on maggot. With this method feeder, of course, everything is in line. You don't need to throw ground bait anywhere. You know that your hook bait is right next to your ground bait. So technically it's quite simple, as long as you can keep casting in the same place. I'm just keeping the fish in the net there. Let me get my disgorge. It's just hooked inside the mouth. The trouble is with these fish, if you lift them right out of the net to unhook them, I wouldn't normally, when I'm catching these, I wouldn't normally lift them up at all. I'm only lifting them up for camera, but normally I would unhook them in the net, just leave them in the net and then tip them back into your, if you are allowed to use a keep net. I don't always use a keep net because, but today with filming, it's nice to have a good one for camera. That's a slightly smaller fish than the last one. I used to play cricket, you know. Look at the way they flap, and you really have to get hold of them well. That's another beautiful mirror. Only about £4, but I'm going to put it straight back. Oh, look at that. They really, look at the state of me. You know, you really have to hang on to them tight and be careful that you don't drop them. As I say, normally, it's only because I'm working for cameras, and this is hard work, I tell you. Normally I would just unhook them in the net, and keep them in the net and put them into your keep net if you're fishing a competition. But if you're not, then you can put them straight back and they can swim happily away. But they are a very rugged fish, you know, and they can put up with a lot. But it's just non-stop action. It really is non-stop action. It's just incredible. That, first of all, just a little bit of a liner. Remember what I said earlier, that once you've thrown out, you look at your tip. If as long as it's moving a little bit, you know there's fish in the location. Once you know there's fish in the location, just leave it. Eventually it's prodding round at that bait and it takes it. Just incredible. In fact, this method is so good that it's banned on a lot of matches. You know, a lot of competitions, they don't allow you to fish it because it's so deadly. But of course, pleasure angling and some matches as well. But there's been enormous weights caught on the method feeder. And I mean, it's brilliant today because I'm casting probably 40 yards across to that other weed bed. So I'm a long way away. It's good when you're working with the camera. The actual fishing is a fair way away, so you're not scaring them. And it's just settling and then round, and the fish are on every time. And they're all reasonable. They really are terrific fish. It's just... And all the time you've got to watch when you're playing and be ready for that back wind. Just be ready to back wind, and tip is round so hard. But that lovely strong line on the hook length, 0.20mm, £10. You might think, why do you use £10? But you're fishing a very short hook length, so you're not looking for sensitivity. It's just that fish, it's all aggression as it's bashing that ball of ground bait. And there's probably 3 or 4 of its friends there as well, bashing that ball of ground bait. So any food that it sees, it just grabs straight away. And this, remember, the art of fishing is feeding. You fooled that fish into giving him that big free ball of ground bait close to it. Another terrific fight. I mean, I am really giving this fish some stick. Clutch still just going, that's the last bit. That just stops it from going. Right under the bank, backwards, forwards, another beautiful fish. Back on this red maggot is working now, it's working really well. Just put 4 maggots on that time again. I can just barely see that there's 2 on the hook there. Get the fish back to where it's nice and secure. Keep it in the net, remember. Can I show you those red maggots? Probably can if I just lift it. If I just lift up there, look, can you see there's just 2 red maggots left on this time. It's pulled 2 off and just hooked in the bottom part of that lip, so I can easily unhook it so easily. Lovely strong hook. You could see the pressure I was putting on that fish. You know, it's important that you use balanced tackle. And another big, I don't know, 5 or 6 pound mirror carp. It's just non-stop, isn't it? Just non-stop action. And this is in the middle of the day. The sun is burning down. The worst time you'd think for fishing, and I'm catching them one after the other. That's the beauty of the method. It is really, put him back. That was a bit noisy, wasn't it? Didn't hurt him though, they're very strong fish. Use the net again. Just drop him in. Well, I don't know how many fish we've caught today, but we have caught a lot. Another fish. Feels like a good one too. I'm actually fishing, because I'm fishing with a line clip, I'm actually fishing with my anti-reverse on. So I can lift the rod up, the anti-reverse is on. But then immediately I hook the fish, I flick the anti-reverse off so then I can back wind and do everything else. This one's just kiting around, but it feels like a really good quality. It's early afternoon now and it's just clouded over a bit. You know, although we're in the middle of this heat wave, it's just clouded over. It wouldn't surprise me if we don't get a storm later. It's one of those days, in fact, it's quite refreshing, but I think it has kept these fish feeding a little bit longer. If it had stayed red hot, I don't think we'd have kept catching them. I've got something to show you, look at this. I've not had time to show you this today, look at that. A method feeder on a waggler for up in the water fishing. But I'll show you that in the next programme. In the meantime, I better try and control this fish. If the fish runs hard to one side, you can actually bring the rod down and pull the fish back. Just pull it back. Oh, this is a big fish, kiting round. I really had to put a lot of pressure on that fish. That is going some there. I just realised it's been hooked, of course, but I just had to sort of kite it around and get it back. You need to keep the fish in open water as much as possible. So pressure on the fish all the time. Just be ready to. And they just cannot resist that method feeder, that big ball of ground bait, the maggots close by. And of course, hey, this is a lovely common. Beautiful fish to finish up with this one. They just cannot resist that. You just see, look, the 4 red maggots out of his hook. I can see them. Oh. And they just can't resist it. It's just such, for anybody, even if you're just starting fishing, this way of fishing with the method is incredible. You know, you can be so successful very early in your angling career. Oh. This is a beautiful common carp. Terrific one. I probably will call this the last one of the day, even though it's still very, very early afternoon. And I've kept catching all day long. Just a little short tail. You can imagine that fish bashing that ball of ground bait, and then it sees 4 maggots close by. What does it think? I'll have some of that. Oh. Do you know what? I believe, although this is the last fish of the day, I think this is one of our best fish today. Terrific. Common carp, big fish, beautiful. I'll try to show you his head. There he is, and where I've got to unhook him. 4 maggots are still there. Still there. Can you just see them maggots? Probably you can't, they're round to the side a bit. Just get this hook out. Leave the fish in the net while I unhook it. Bit of an awkward angle really. Let me just turn the fish round a little bit, just so I can get into it. Although it's a barbless hook, you must use barbless hooks, of course, all these fisheries. They're much better for the fish. Because even a barbless hook can take some time to get out. That's the hook out of the way. And look at this, a beautiful big common carp, terrific fish to finish up on, but how about that for success with the method feeder? Really have to be good in this game to keep hold of the fish. I'll slip it back in the net and then we'll have a look and see what I've actually caught today. Look at the state of me. I mean, you can always tell when you've had an enjoyable day. Both legs soaking wet, shirt filthy dirty, look at that. But an incredible day's fishing, really was. What a terrific bag of fish. It just shows you what you can do, and there must be probably 80 pounds of fish there. I'm not going to lift them out, I'm just going to tip them back in the water. Look at that big common there. Oh, there's a little skimmer there as well, a little bream. But it just shows you what you can do just with a ball of ground bait, the hook bait near the ground bait. Look at those beautiful carp. Just a tremendous day's fishing. And every one of them, another big common there, every one of them, quality fish. It just shows you what you can do, just accurate casting, everything nice and tight all day long, and quality fish all the time. Really proves the method and how successful you can be with it.